Have you ever wondered how a single moment can shatter the carefully constructed walls between two worlds that were never meant to collide? Life's most profound revelations often arrive in the most unexpected ways. For Elena Vasquez, it happened on an ordinary Tuesday when her babysitter canceled last minute, forcing her to bring her 7-year-old daughter to the office building she cleaned each night. A building owned by the man who never knew he had fathered a child. A man whose amber eyes, identical to her daughter's, would widen in shock as the little girl ran across his executive suite, arms outstretched, voice ringing clear as she called him Daddy. In that suspended moment between heartbeats, 3 lives balanced on the precipice of transformation. A cleaning woman with a secret, a powerful CEO with a carefully crafted image, an innocent child whose simple act of recognition would force the truth into the unforgiving light of day. Some secrets aren't meant to stay buried forever. Some connections transcend the barriers of wealth, status, and time. This is a story about second chances, uncomfortable truths, and a recognition that family can be found in the most unexpected circumstances. Hey there, beautiful souls. Welcome to Love Crib, your ultimate destination for all things romances, connection, and heartfelt stories. I'm thrilled to have you here, sharing this amazing journey of exploring love in all its beautiful, complex, and magical forms. Whether you're a hopeless romantic, someone searching for relationship insights, or just love diving into heartwarming content, you're exactly where you need to be. If you're enjoying what you see, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could hit that subscribe button to stay connected with our Love Crib community. Drop a like to show some love, support, and motivation. Share this video with someone who might need a little romance in their life. Your support means the world to me and helps us continue creating content that celebrates love, connection, and the beautiful stories that bring us together. The early morning silence of Skyline Enterprises' top floor was broken only by the soft hum of vacuum cleaners and the occasional squeak of a polishing cloth against glass. Elena Vasquez moved methodically through the executive suite, her practiced hands making quick work of the dust that accumulated overnight on the expensive furniture. At 42, she had been cleaning offices for nearly 2 decades, the last 5 at this prestigious financial firm in downtown New York. Today was different. It was spring break, and her babysitter had canceled last minute. With no other options, Elena had reluctantly brought her 7-year-old daughter, Sophia, to work. The building manager had been understanding. Elena was their most reliable cleaner, after all, but had warned her to keep the child quiet and out of sight, especially from the executives who might arrive early. "Mommy, I'm bored," Sophia whispered, looking up from her coloring book. She sat cross-legged in the corner of the CEO's expansive office, her dark curls falling over her face as she frowned at her artwork. "Just a little longer, mi amor," Elena replied, emptying the wastepaper basket. "Then we'll go to the break room, and you can have the granola bar I packed." The office was immaculate, a testament to power and wealth. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Manhattan skyline, bathed in the golden light of dawn. Original artwork adorned the walls, and a single photograph sat on a massive oak desk. A man in a tailored suit shaking hands with the mayor. Sophia's eyes wandered around the room, taking in the luxury that was so different from their small apartment in Queens. Then, her gaze fixed on something that made her eyes widen. She scrambled to her feet. "Sophia, stay put," Elena began, but it was too late. The elevator dinged, and the double doors to the office swung open. Alexander Donovan, CEO of Skyline Enterprises, and one of New York's most eligible bachelors at 45, strode in. His tailored suit couldn't hide his athletic build, and his salt and pepper hair gave him an air of distinguished authority. He was earlier than usual, his mind already racing with the day's negotiations. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion for Elena. Sophia bolted across the room, her small sneakers squeaking on the polished floor. Before Elena could call out, before she could apologize for her daughter's presence, Sophia threw herself at the startled executive. "Daddy." The child's voice rang clear in the pristine office as her small arms wrapped around Alexander Donovan's legs. The CEO froze. His briefcase slipped from his fingers, hitting the floor with a dull thud. His eyes, the same striking shade of amber as Sophia's, widened in shock. Elena's heart stopped. In that moment, as recognition dawned on Alexander Donovan's face, she knew that the carefully constructed walls separating their worlds had come crashing down. The secret she had guarded for 8 years was exposed in her daughter's innocent embrace, and that single word, Daddy. Elena Vasquez had not always been a cleaner. 8 years ago, she had been Elena Rodriguez, an ambitious paralegal working at Mercer and Watts, one of New York's prestigious law firms that handled Skyline Enterprises' legal affairs. Her intelligence and work ethic had caught the attention of partners who saw potential in a young woman from Queens, the daughter of Dominican immigrants who had sacrificed everything for her education. It was during the preparation for a major merger that Elena first met Alexander Donovan. He was already successful then, though not yet the powerhouse he would become. His company was smaller, hungrier, and he personally attended many of the legal preparations. Elena had been assigned to organize a mountain of paperwork the merger required. "You're the only one who seems to know where everything is," Alexander had told her one night, as they were both working late. His smile had transformed his serious face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. "I'd be lost without you." What began as late nights reviewing documents evolved into dinner discussions about the case, which gradually shifted conversations about their lives, dreams, and backgrounds. Alexander was from old money, but had rejected the path his family had laid out for him, building his own company from the ground up. Elena shared stories of her parents' immigration, her determination to succeed in a world that often underestimated her. Their affair was brief but intense. 3 months of stolen moments, of passion that both knew was complicated by their professional connection and different worlds. Elena had no illusions about their future. Alexander was engaged to Catherine Astor, a match that united 2 of New York's wealthiest families and provided the capital his growing company needed. "It's not what I want," he had confessed to Elena during their last night together. "But sometimes we have to make sacrifices for the greater good." Elena had ended things first, recognizing an impossible situation. "We both have dreams that don't include this complication," she had told him gently. Alexander had accepted her decision with regret, but understanding. They parted ways amicably, both believing they were doing the right thing. 2 weeks later, Elena discovered she was pregnant. She wrestled with telling him. Alexander was now married to Catherine, and Skyline Enterprises had secured the crucial investment from the Astor family that was propelling it toward becoming the financial juggernaut it was destined to be. Elena knew that her news would shatter multiple lives and possibly derail the trajectory Alexander had worked so hard to achieve. After days of agonizing, she made her decision. She would raise the child alone. She resigned from Mercer and Watts, citing family reasons, and moved to a different neighborhood. She legally changed her last name back to her mother's maiden name, Vasquez, further obscuring the connection. The pregnancy was difficult. Complications arose that required bed rest during her final trimester, depleting her savings. After Sophia's birth, returning to legal work proved impossible with the demands of single motherhood and no family support. Her parents had passed away years earlier, and she was an only child. Elena took what work she could find, eventually settling into office cleaning, because the night shifts allowed her to be with Sophia during the day. Life was hard but rewarding. Sophia was a bright, loving child who inherited her father's quick mind and her mother's determination. Elena told her daughter that her father had died before she was born, a kind man who would have loved her very much. She kept a single photo of Alexander, torn from a business magazine, hidden in her nightstand drawer. Sometimes, late at night, she would look at it and wonder if she had made the right choice. She had never expected to work in Alexander's building. When the cleaning company she worked for won the contract for Skyline Enterprises, Elena had almost quit, but the pay was better, and the hours worked well with Sophia's school schedule. She had reasoned that the CEO would never notice a night cleaner, that their paths would never cross. For 5 years, she had been right. She cleaned his office while he was home with his wife, leaving before the executives arrived for their day. She was invisible, a ghost who disappeared with the night. Until today, when her carefully separated worlds collided in her daughter's innocent embrace. Alexander Donovan's life was the epitome of success by conventional standards. Skyline Enterprises had grown from a boutique investment firm to a financial powerhouse under his leadership. The merger that had brought Elena into his life had been the first of many strategic moves that established him as a financial visionary. The business magazines that once ignored him now featured his face on their covers, analyzing his every decision. His marriage to Catherine Astor had been precisely what he'd expected, a partnership built on mutual ambition rather than deep affection. Catherine was brilliant in her own right, with a Harvard MBA and sharp business acumen. She managed the Astor family investments and sat on several prestigious boards. They made a formidable power couple, respected and envied in equal measure. But behind closed doors, their relationship had cooled to polite indifference within the first 2 years. They maintained appearances, attended functions together, and shared the same address, a penthouse with a view that tourists paid to see. But they lived separate lives, bound by the prenuptial agreement that would severely penalize Alexander if he initiated a divorce. Catherine had made it clear she had no interest in ending their arrangement. The Astor name benefited from the association with Skyline's growing success. The one true regret in Alexander's life was their childlessness. Catherine had been transparent from the beginning about not wanting children, a stance that hadn't bothered Alexander initially. But as he approached his mid-40s, he found himself increasingly haunted by the absence of family in his life. His own parents had died in a car accident during his college years, leaving him alone except for a distant cousin who managed the family's old money interests. Often, in rare quiet moments, Alexander found himself thinking about Elena. Their brief time together had been the most authentic connection he'd experienced. He had searched for her once, about a year after their parting, only to discover she had left a law firm with no forwarding information. He had respected what he assumed was her wish for a clean break and buried himself in building his empire. Now, staring down at the child clinging to his legs, a girl with his amber eyes and Elena's delicate features, Alexander felt the foundation of his carefully constructed reality shift. 1,000 questions flooded his mind, but one certainty emerged through the chaos. This was his daughter. He knew it with an instinctive recognition that transcended logic or proof. He knelt down slowly, bringing himself to the child's eye level. "Hello," he said softly, his voice uncharacteristically uncertain. "Sophia," Elena's voice cut through the tension. "Come here, please." She looked terrified, her complexion ashen, as she clutched her cleaning supplies like a shield. The little girl looked confused, but reluctantly released her hold on Alexander's legs. "But, Mommy, it's him. It's the man from your picture. It's my daddy." Elena closed her eyes briefly, as if gathering strength. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Donovan. My daughter has an active imagination. We'll get out of your way immediately." Alexander stood, his gaze never leaving Elena's face. "No," he said firmly. "Please stay." He gathered his composure, the skilled negotiator taking over where the shocked man had faltered. "I think we have a lot to discuss, don't we, Elena?" Her eyes widened at his use of her name, the recognition it implied. "You remember me." "Of course I remember you." His voice softened. "I tried to find you once." Sophia looked between them, confusion giving way to hope. "So you're my daddy? Mommy said you went to heaven before I was born." Alexander's expression reflected a complex mix of emotions, shock, wonder, and a growing anger not directed at the child but at the situation. The years lost, the deception, the revelation that he had a daughter who had been taught he was dead. "Why don't we go to my private conference room?" he suggested, his business tone returning. "Sophia, would you like some hot chocolate? I'm sure we can find some in the executive kitchen." As Elena watched Alexander gently take her daughter's small hand, she realized that the carefully constructed life she had built was about to change forever, for better or worse. The truth was now in the open. The executive conference room was designed to intimidate, with its gleaming table and panoramic views of the city. Elena had cleaned it hundreds of times, but had never sat in one of the plush leather chairs. Now, she perched uncomfortably on the edge of one, watching as Sophia happily sipped hot chocolate with whipped cream, courtesy of Alexander's executive assistant, who had arrived early and been sworn to discretion. "She can wait in the outer office with Ms. Reynolds," Alexander suggested, nodding toward his assistant. "We need to talk privately." Elena hesitated but nodded. After Sophia was settled with paper and colored pencils, the door closed behind them, leaving Elena alone with a man she had never expected to face again. 7 years, Alexander said quietly, the controlled rage evident in his measured tone. She's 7 years old. 8 in 2 months, Elena confirmed, her hands clasped tightly in her lap to stop them from trembling. And you told her I was dead. It wasn't a question. Elena met his gaze directly. It seemed kinder than telling her you were alive but would never be part of her life. That wasn't your decision to make. Alexander's voice rose slightly before he checked himself. How could you keep this from me? What gave you the right to decide I wouldn't want to know my own child? You were married, Elena replied simply, to Catherine Astor. Your company was taking off. The timing of her birth would have made it obvious when she was conceived. I was protecting everyone. You, your wife, your business, and yes, my daughter from becoming tabloid fodder or a shameful secret. Alexander paced the length of the conference room, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration. So instead, you disappeared, changed your name, ended up cleaning my office, of all places. He turned to her, disbelief evident in his expression. Did you plan this? Some kind of long con? Elena's eyes flashed with anger. Is that what you think? That I deliberately took a minimum wage job scrubbing toilets on the off chance that one day our paths would cross? That I'm after your money? Then explain why you're here in my building. Because the cleaning company I work for won the contract 5 years ago, and this job pays $2 more an hour than the last one. She stood up, her dignity intact despite her cleaning uniform. I've never asked you for anything, and I'm not starting now. Sophia wasn't supposed to be here today. My babysitter canceled, and I had no choice. We'll leave, and you can pretend this never happened. Sit down, Alexander commanded, then softened his tone. Please, I'm trying to understand. Elena slowly sank back into the chair. Tell me about her, he requested, his voice gentler than before. And so Elena did. She told him about Sophia's birth, her first steps, her love of books and puzzles, her talent for mathematics that already outpaced her second-grade classmates. She shared stories of their small apartment, their weekend traditions, the sacrifices and joys of her life as a single mother. Alexander listened intently, occasionally asking questions that revealed his genuine interest. As Elena spoke, his anger gradually transformed into something more complex. Grief for what he'd missed, admiration for Elena's strength, and a growing desire to know the child who carried his blood. How did she recognize me? He finally asked. Elena's cheeks flushed with embarrassment. I keep a photo. From a magazine. Sometimes she would ask about you, and I would show it to her. I never thought that we would meet, he finished for her. Yet here we are. A silence fell between them, heavy with unspoken thoughts and the weight of decisions to come. I want to be part of her life, Alexander stated firmly. I've lost 7 years. I won't lose any more. Elena had expected this, but still felt a surge of protective fear. And how exactly do you see that working? Will you tell your wife? The board of directors? Will you acknowledge her publicly or keep her a secret? Because I won't have her treated as something shameful. Alexander's expression hardened with determination. I'm not ashamed of her. Or you, for that matter. Your life is complicated, Alexander. Mine is simple by necessity. I want a Sophia caught in the crossfire of whatever fallout this creates. Then we'll need to find a way forward that protects her while allowing me to be her father. He paused, considering his next words carefully. I'm not the same man you knew 8 years ago, Elena, and I suspect you're not the same woman. But one thing hasn't changed. I respect you. We'll figure this out together, for Sophia's sake. The following weeks unfolded in a blur of adjustments and revelations. Alexander arranged for Elena to take paid leave from the cleaning company, ostensibly to handle a family matter, while continuing to receive her salary. He insisted on meeting Sophia properly, away from the office environment that represented the stark divide between their worlds. Their first real meeting took place at Central Park Zoo, neutral territory, where Sophia could be comfortable and Alexander could begin the delicate process of getting to know his daughter. Elena watched from a bench as a child who had inherited Alexander's analytical mind bombarded him with questions about animals, his work, and most persistently, why he hadn't been part of her life. Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, Alexander had explained, kneeling to meet Sophia's earnest gaze. The biggest mistake I ever made was not knowing about you. But I'm here now if you'll let me be. Sophia had considered this with the solemn deliberation only children can truly master. Do I call you Dad or Alexander? Whatever feels right to you, he had answered, his voice thick with emotion. I think Dad, she had decided. I've been waiting a long time to say it to a real person instead of a picture. Elena had turned away, blinking back tears at the simple acceptance children could offer when adults would have demanded explanations and harbored resentments. At his insistence, Alexander began providing financial support, though Elena initially resisted. We've managed just fine, she had argued. This isn't about your capability, he countered. It's about my responsibility and my right to provide for my child. They compromised on an educational trust for Sophia and a modest monthly stipend that would allow Elena to reduce her working hours and spend more time with her daughter. Alexander also paid for their relocation to a safer neighborhood, though Elena drew the line at anything lavish that would raise questions among her friends and neighbors. The most challenging aspect was navigating Alexander's public life. Catherine was often in Europe, managing Astor family interests, which gave Alexander some freedom. He began carving out time in his schedule for Sophia, careful to avoid public places where they might be photographed together. Elena worried constantly about discovery. What happens when someone recognizes you with her? When questions start being asked? Alexander had no easy answers. His marriage to Catherine was effectively over, existing only on paper and at carefully orchestrated public appearances. But the prenuptial agreement and business entanglements made separation complicated. The truth would eventually emerge. It was only a matter of when and how. That decision was taken out of their hands 6 weeks after Sophia's unexpected visit to Skyline Enterprises. Alexander had taken Sophia to a small museum on a rainy Sunday afternoon, believing it would be safe from prying eyes. Elena had stayed home, fighting a seasonal cold. Neither of them noticed a young intern from the marketing department who recognized the CEO and discreetly snapped a photo of Alexander holding Sophia's hand as he explained an exhibit. By Monday morning, the photo had made its way through office gossip channels to Catherine's social circle and finally to a tabloid journalist who had been tracking rumors of trouble in the Donovan-Astor marriage for months. Elena was folding laundry when her phone rang. Alexander's voice was tense. Have you seen the news? What news? Check your email. Now. With shaking hands, Elena opened the message he had just sent. There on her screen was a headline. Skyline CEO's secret child? Alexander Donovan spotted with mystery girl who calls him Dad. The grainy photo showed Alexander and Sophia clearly, their matching profiles unmistakable even to strangers. The article beneath speculated wildly about the child's age, her mother's identity, and the state of Alexander's marriage. Catherine's lawyers have already called, Alexander said grimly, and the board is requesting an emergency meeting. Elena sank onto the couch, her worst fears materializing. What do we do now? We stop hiding, Alexander replied with unexpected resolve. I'm tired of living a life that looks perfect on paper, but feels empty. Sophia deserves better. You deserve better. Alexander. I should have fought for what mattered 8 years ago, he interrupted. I won't make that mistake again. I'm going to acknowledge Sophia publicly as my daughter. The fallout with Catherine and the board, I'll handle it. And us? Elena asked softly, what about us? The line went silent for a moment. That depends on you, he finally said. I lost you once because I wasn't brave enough to choose what really mattered. I'm not asking for immediate answers, but I want you to know that this time, I'm choosing differently. When the conference concluded, Alexander joined them in the private room, his public composure giving way to visible exhaustion. You were magnificent, Elena told him softly. It's done, he replied, loosening his tie. For better or worse, it's all in the open now. Sophia, who had been unusually quiet throughout the proceedings, looked up at him with solemn eyes. Are people going to be mean to Mommy because of me? Alexander knelt before her, gently taking her small hands in his. "If anyone is ever unkind to either of you, they'll have to answer to me. But more importantly, you must remember that none of this is your fault. The complications in adult lives are created by adults, not by children who deserve only love and protection." He glanced up at Elena, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition of how far they had come and how uncertain the path ahead remained. "What happens now?" Sophia asked, giving voice to the question that hung in the air. Alexander smiled, the expression transforming his tired face. "Now, we take some time away from all of this. I've arranged for a house in the Berkshires where we can spend a few weeks together. Just the three of us, getting to know each other properly without photographers and reporters watching our every move." The press conference Alexander called 3 days later was unprecedented in its personal nature. The business world was accustomed to CEOs addressing financial projections, mergers, and quarterly results, not standing at podiums acknowledging 7-year-old daughters from relationships predating their marriages. Elena watched from a private room adjacent to the conference hall, holding Sophia's hand as Alexander addressed the sea of reporters and cameras. He was in his element, commanding the room with the same authority he wielded in boardrooms. But there was a new quality to his presence, an authenticity that had been missing in his carefully crafted public persona. 8 years ago, before my marriage, I had a relationship with a remarkable woman, he stated without preamble. Neither of us knew that this relationship resulted in a child. I recently discovered that I have a daughter, a brilliant 7-year-old girl, who deserves to be acknowledged publicly as what she is, a Donovan. The room erupted with questions, camera flashes creating a strobing effect that made Elena glad they had decided to keep Sophia away from the main event. "My marriage to Catherine Astor has been in name only for several years," Alexander continued once the noise subsided. "We have lived separate lives while maintaining a business partnership and public facade. In light of recent events, we have mutually agreed to divorce." This was a carefully crafted half-truth. Catherine, faced with irrefutable evidence and potential for public humiliation, had negotiated a settlement that protected her financial interests and reputation in exchange for a no-fault dissolution of their marriage. She had already released a statement expressing surprise at the discovery of Alexander's child, but wishing the family well, a masterpiece of PR spin that cast her as dignified and magnanimous. "My priority now is to build a relationship with my daughter and to support her mother, who has raised an extraordinary child under challenging circumstances. I ask for privacy as we navigate this new chapter in our lives." As Alexander fielded questions with practiced ease, deflecting the more invasive inquiries while firmly establishing the narrative they had agreed upon, Elena felt a strange mixture of terror and relief. The secrecy that had defined their situation was gone, replaced by a bright spotlight that was its own kind of threat. "Like a family?" Sophia's hopeful tone pierced Elena's heart. "Yes," Alexander confirmed, his gaze meeting Elena's over their daughter's head. "Exactly like a family." The gala benefiting children's literacy programs was in full swing. The ballroom of the Plaza Hotel transformed into an elegant wonderland of lights and flowers. New York's elite mingled among the tables, checkbooks at the ready as they supported the cause that had become Alexander Donovan's personal mission over the past year. At the center of it all was Sophia, now 8 years old, confidently explaining to potential donors how the program had helped her classmates at the public school she still attended, despite Alexander's initial suggestion of private education. Elena had been firm on this point. Their daughter would remain grounded in the real world, regardless of her father's wealth. Elena herself stood near the refreshment table, elegant in a midnight blue gown that Alexander had insisted on, but she had selected herself. She watched with pride as Sophia charmed Manhattan's most formidable socialites with her genuine passion for books and learning. "She's extraordinary." Catherine Astor's voice came from beside her, causing Elena to startle slightly. Alexander's ex-wife looked impeccable as always, her presence at the event a carefully orchestrated show of amicable relations that benefited everyone's public image. "Thank you," Elena replied cautiously. Their interactions had been minimal and strictly civil, navigated primarily through assistants and carefully worded emails. Catherine sipped her champagne, observing Sophia with a thoughtful expression. "You did well with her. Better than I would have." She turned to Elena with a surprisingly candid look. I never wanted children. Alexander knew that from the beginning. Our marriage was always more strategic than romantic. Why are you telling me this? Because I see the way you still look at each other when you think no one is watching. Catherine's tone held no bitterness, only a matter-of-fact acknowledgement. And I wanted you to know that I don't harbor resentment. What happened was inevitable in its way. Before Elena could respond, Alexander joined them, his hand coming to rest lightly at the small of Elena's back in a gesture that had become familiar over months of cautiously rebuilding their relationship. Catherine, he greeted his ex-wife with genuine warmth. Their divorce, once finalized, had actually improved their rapport, allowing for a business relationship uncomplicated by personal expectations. Your daughter is making quite the impression, Catherine observed. She has your persuasiveness and Elena's heart, a formidable combination. With a nod to them both, she moved away to join another group, leaving Alexander and Elena alone. Did I interrupt something important? He asked, his thumb tracing small circles on Elena's back. Just gaining some closure, I think, Elena replied, watching Catherine's retreating figure. Alexander followed her gaze. The past year has been full of surprises. Indeed it had. The scandal of Sophia's existence had faded from the headlines more quickly than expected, replaced by the next celebrity gossip. Alexander had weathered the temporary stock fluctuation and board concerns, emerging with his position secure and a new reputation for authentic leadership. Elena had returned to school, pursuing the law degree she had once abandoned, supported by Alexander's encouragement and childcare assistance. Their relationship had evolved slowly, deliberately, both aware of the precious second chance they had been given. Do you ever regret it? Alexander asked quietly, the way everything came to light. Elena turned to face him fully, her expression softening as she looked toward Sophia, now being twirled around the dance floor by Alexander's assistant, who had become the little girl's devoted friend. How can I regret anything that led us here? She replied, reaching up to straighten his bow tie with familiar ease. Some secrets are too important to stay hidden forever. Alexander captured her hand and pressed a kiss to her palm, a public display of affection that would have been unthinkable a year ago. I was thinking, he said casually, though his eyes betrayed his nervousness, that perhaps it's time to make another announcement. Elena's breath caught as she realized what he was suggesting. Are you sure? It's been just a year since the divorce was finalized. I've waited 8 years to build a life with you, he reminded her. I don't want to waste any more time. Across the room, Sophia looked over at them and waved excitedly, her face alight with happiness. In that moment, as Alexander's arm wrapped securely around her waist and their daughter beamed at them, Elena knew with certainty that the unexpected path that had led them here, from secret affair to painful separation to cleaning lady and CEO to co-parents and now, potentially, to husband and wife, had been worth every difficult step. Some fairy tales weren't about princes rescuing maidens from towers, but about ordinary people finding the courage to embrace extraordinary love, no matter how complicated or unconventional the journey.